Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and leadership. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 280th episode, we have a great show with a longtime friend, but also one of the best thought leaders in healthcare and also public policy and regulatory experts, Greg Fulton, Senior Manager, Market Access and Reimbursement from Philips Healthcare. Welcome back to the show, my good friend.
Thanks, Justin. Happy to be here. Been a long time. Seems like yesterday.
Yeah, but so we're catching up a little bit off air, but first, how long has it been since you've been on the show?
I'm going to say 2014 or 2015.
Like you're talking about almost 7-8 years or so, 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't.
Like yesterday.
It does. I mean, you and I, a lot of my audience knows, but Greg and I go way back. We started working together. We think it's around 2010.
2010,
right before, meaningful use.
Yeah.
And so I think, or at least I love the regulatory aspects. Obviously, we passed meaningful use in 2009, but it was a lot of the regulatory components were starting to come together. And Greg was just one of the best writers out there, but also just experts in a lot of different fields, but also in research. And so Greg was just a great addition to the team. And we, as our good friend Steve Bashara would say, ran a lot of fence line together. But on the regulatory front, obviously public policy at a high level, but anything to do with legislation, regulation, testimonies, position papers, statements, all that good stuff, Greg and I would partner on. And he is one of the best and the brightest in the industry, if not, in my opinion, the best and the brightest. If I had to go do all that again, I would only do it with you, my friend.
Me too. Yeah, we worked it out. I appreciate that. And no excuses for the absence coming on the show. Would be happy to come on more and more.
I know. Well, as we caught up at the health conference, I'm absolutely going to have you on the show more. We just have a good rapport, but also everything that you study and you bring to the market, but also I want you to bring to the show is just so respected. It's always spot on, great perspective. So we're going to have you back on the show a lot more coming up.
I'm game if you are. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll put it on me. I can't fathom it's been possibly 7 or 8 years since you've been on the show, literally. And I actually thought we started working together, in 2007, 2008, but you said it was closer to 2010 or 2011, which I totally agree with. Time really, truly flies. So amazing.
Yeah. 2010. And then we went to HIMSS 11 in Atlanta.
Yes.
Shortly thereafter.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and dive in, have a good time. Let's have some fun here too. You and I have obviously a deep history, but also have a great respect and love for public policy, law, legislation, regulation, the process, the rules, all that good stuff. So before we dive in too deep, because you and I sometimes get extremely granular,
Yeah.
What at a broad level, where are we with health policy in America today? Obviously there's, a lot of moving parts with telehealth, remote care, care management, but also at the broader scope, we just had this fee for service, some real not good stuff there going on. But at a high level, where are we with health policy in America?
Yeah, as you know, the fee schedule final rule just came out a couple of weeks or so ago. We will talk a little bit about that. There are some bright spots in there specific to remote care. I'm glad you're pointing that out because we'll talk a little bit about that. I would say overall, we are in a post-COVID, post-PHE landscape, but let's not forget where we came from. And I think we'll get to it as we go through, what is CMS doing? What is Congress doing? What are private payers? How are you extending or massaging or moving forward on what were these COVID, PHE, public health emergency policies? And how can you keep those in place? And what's it going to take if, in fact, we learned during COVID that remote care is an answer and it can be done without fraud, abuse, waste, the things that CMS is always a little bit scared of, and I think we're seeing both in this fee schedule and in other areas, we're seeing that movement specific to remote care, hospital to home, all of these things. Where can that go and where are they going and how do we keep them going?
Mm-hmm. No, great point. And I think, when you and I were on Capitol Hill together and did a lot of that policy work and testifying, it was ferocious. I mean, there was so many things happening. So at least I believe my gut now is it's a little bit more manageable. Obviously, the impacts are always large and sweeping for the industry and for companies, but I think there's probably a few less pieces to manage. I mean, I think about, when you come to privacy and interoperability and just in general, all the CMS regulations with EHRs and other devices that could or may or may not be regulated. I mean, there's so many moving parts when we were there together. But now is it a little bit more manageable now or not?
A little bit more manageable in terms of, you also see where patient access also started growing, even a little bit before the pandemic, but certainly during and now after. ONC came in with its information blocking regulation, things like that. So I think patient access has really come along with these other themes that you're speaking to really, get information out to the patient and things like that. A lot of that mobility, a lot of those virtual supervision, things like that we'll talk about, have all really come together. Now the march is toward permanence in some areas, but we'll talk about that also.
Excellent. What about Blue Button? We're going to talk about Blue Button? I'm just kidding.
Remember that? Remember the logo?
Yeah, I do. It's great. Oh, that goes back to, I think, even, that's 2008, 9, 10, 11 timeframe where it all started.
Yeah.
Anish Chopra, actually one of the founders of that. Anish has become a really good friend of mine, great friend of the show as well. But Anish Chopra, a lot of my audience know him. He's always stayed a great friend throughout the industry, and I always try to have him back as much as I can. He's awesome, and he's the Blue Button pioneer with Farzad.
Oh yeah, don't blame you. Well regarded. Yeah, a pioneer, I think, really is the word.
Absolutely.
So are now compared to they used to be.
Very true. So I think also, we talk about remote care and care management. So I mean, and something that you and I have worked a lot on is rural healthcare. So RHC and FQHC, the federally qualified health centers, those patients seem like a natural fit for RPM and CCM care as well as reimbursement. What took so long for that to come around?
Yeah, and I'll back up and really set the stage. And without overstating it, I would say that in this physician fee schedule final rule, specific to remote physiologic monitoring, RPM, we've seen the greatest expansion of RPM since those codes were introduced in 2019. And you've just rightly touched on some of the areas: federal qualified health centers, rural health centers, chronic care management. More specifically, what CMS did in this final rule is they finally, to your question, have made it available so that FQHCs and RHCs can now bill for RPM. Yeah. And that's good because it's a care management approach. FQHCs were always built for CCM codes. They were always in there for FQHCs. The RPM not. Why did it take so long? I don't know if there's one real specific answer to that. I think it just has to do with the way CMS is structured. The physician fee schedule is more fee for service. Right. FQHCs is a prospective payment service approach. Yep. And they were just looking for ways to kind of meld those together. I would agree with you. It took too long. The way they have now constructed it is the RPM codes. If you're familiar with the codes, there are device codes where you're billing the device payments.
Right.
And there are care management codes. Those line up with what FQHCs historically could do. So what they've said in the rule, without getting too much for inside baseball, is the care management codes of RPM, for example, can be bundled in to FQHCs, and you can bill those monthly in the single fee that encompasses all those care management codes that FQHCs can do: CCM, behavioral health integration, and now RPM, those latter two codes. Those can all be billed together per patient per month, or they can be billed separately depending on what a given provider is doing for a given patient in an FQHC. So great news and a big expansion. I think what took so long was just the nature of CMS trying to meld together two different types of payment structures or payment programs.
Yeah, and there's a follow. Oh yeah, and I have a follow up later on if we get to it, kind of diving in there, because we are watching CMS how they're trying to transition from fee for service to value based care, and how do they do that? So I think this is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I would say in terms of, you mentioned chronic care management or CCM, I'm going on touting all these expansions for RPM. Let's look at RPM and CCM. Historically, if you're on the air listening, and you would know some of this, historically, yes, you could bill some of the RPM and CCM codes together, same patient, same month, as long as you do separate 20 minutes of care management. Once again, there's a theme here that CMS is putting out this year. There's care management codes within RPM. CCM is all about care management. I mean, It's in the name, chronic care management.
Exactly.
What they have done is now they said in this final rule, you can bill same patient, same month, combining all of the chronic care management family of codes and the RPM care management codes, again, per patient per month, separate 20 minutes. But what does that mean? Look at those family of codes. Chronic care management. There are about 6 or 7 codes alone there. Care management, a pair of codes. Principal care management, 1 chronic condition, 2 or 3 codes there. Chronic pain management, if you have not heard of those codes came out a year ago. Behavioral health integration. So among all of those codes, you can again match up and bill per patient per month. First 20 minutes, second 20 minutes. I won't do the math. I'm not advocating math or ROI, but yes, if you're doing your own math at home, that means you could bill up to 4 codes per patient per month. One last point here, and I'll stop going on and on. The beauty of these codes, or the opportunity of these codes, all of them can be done general supervision. FQHCs and RHCs also allow that. That has led to scale and business models with third-party contracts. So health centers and health systems can look at a lot more patients if they go into a contract with a given third party to handle these codes, physician, the practice bills. So major expansions there on concurrent billing with the CC family and FQHCs. A couple of more expansions of RPM too, but I'll pause, let you get some words in, and then there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we will go deep, but these are going to be ongoing conversations too, because they are very complex. We'll cover them more and more as they go on. But yeah, I think this is, I just love to see this, because this is, in my opinion, the transition that Medicare is looking to do past fee for service. This really is value-based care. This is, reimbursing providers for communication with patients when they're not in the office. I mean, this is exciting to see. It's really coming together. And to your point, you don't need to do the math or with a calculator, but there are tens of thousands of dollars, more than that now, even higher from what I know from companies that, I watch, reimbursement for their providers, 50, 60, 80, $100,000 a month, just an extra reimbursement, and more than that sometimes. So it's significant. If you're a provider or in a practice not paying attention to what RPM and CCM specifically can do for your practice, your care of medicine, not only is it a higher quality of care for your patient, patients generally love it. They love this management in between visits, certainly with CCM and obviously remote care management, but it's a lot of money. CMS is putting the money where the mouth is. So I love it.
You said it yourself. If QHC patients are a given population,
absolutely
benefiting from RPM. Now they can, all starting January 1st, 2024. And you said it yourself too, the RPM are device codes. CCM are not device codes. So you're finally seeing this full merger of devices and what we used to call care coordination. Now, care management, call it what you will. You're finally seeing that really meld together across the board of the codes. And, rightly, again, you said it yourself, we've seen CMS kind of sweeten the pot on the CCM family of codes since their origination, for goodness sake, back in 2015.
That's right.
Where every year they've increased the fee a little bit. They've increased the fee. And they've brought in others. Then they expanded TCM, PCM, chronic pain management. They've really been pushing this for a long time. And I think this is a kind of a capper on that too, by getting RPM into the picture.
Love it. Love it. So let's transition a little bit. Where are the private payers in all this for the non-Medicare populations?
Yeah, good news. Historically, the private payers have recognized the RPM codes, just as they have recognized what became, the really blossom expansion of telehealth codes during COVID and during the pandemic. They have always recognized them, and they've always paid rates on or above, what CMS is paying. What you're seeing in RPM too is how they're keeping up with innovation. Here to brag on poor CMS, but they sometimes have trouble keeping up with innovation. You're seeing it in artificial intelligence. You're seeing it in wearables. You're seeing it in biomarkers. You're seeing those technologies come about, and you're seeing that non-Medicare younger population that wants to do apps. They want to do wearables. They want to keep track. Here is where private payers are keeping pace and covering those sort of things. I would also mention that we're also seeing trending up in private payers taking on and pursuing Medicaid covered lives.
Excellent.
Medicaid managed care organizations are being undertaken by large private payers. Anthem has a program, Centene has a program, so on and so forth. That can only be good news for both your Medicaid patients and for getting technology on par with reimbursement. And just, again, we talked further about patient access and things like that. You're seeing that start to move up the chain a little bit also.
Love it. Love it. I think you have my passion. I think you're banging your desk over there, Greg, because you have my energy, but it's coming across, I think. I love the energy. That's why we work so well together. So now let's transition a little bit, because we mentioned the physician fee schedule at the top of the show. Medicare, obviously Congress has historically got involved with Medicare, all the pay fixes. What's the congressional landscape right now in this? Where are we going with this topic? I mean, these cuts are, we've always fought, for increases, but now we're getting these cuts, and I know why. But what's the crystal ball show here?
There is a lot occurring in Congress right now as we speak, in my opinion, all to the good. And yes, there are bills right now to kind of fix the physician fee schedule rate cuts. And as you say, you used to lead that charge every year on the Hill and stuff. And that part is still happening. But to the good, let's go back to the end of last year. What did Congress do? Well, they extended telehealth, and they extended the telehealth list, and they extended telehealth in the home through 2024. Not that CMS didn't want to or could, but CMS really can't, because it's more statutory, as you well know. That language in the Social Security Act, so on and so forth. Yeah. But Congress made sure to push telehealth. Congress also pushed through 24 the CMS COVID model called hospital at home. We opened the show talking about remote care.
Yep.
CMS hospital at home. My gosh, there are more than 300 hospital health systems that signed up for that. And thankfully, Congress did extend that for another year. Good question on where hospital to home goes after 2024, right? Because we're really talking about the CMS model, the COVID model. Should we not take a look at that model and really improve it, or take a real good look at that, since we're this many years out past the pandemic? But again, Congress, good news, extended CMS hospital to home. What is Congress doing right now? There is a bill in Congress that would eliminate copays for chronic care management, since we brought that up.
Oh, wow.
And that's always been a barrier. I mean,
yes.
if you're a Medicare patient, and do you want to pay 20% copays? If you're a Medicare patient on RPM, do you want to pay a copay per code? And there are 4 codes in the course of an episode of care for RPM. There is a bill to eliminate copays we're supporting. There's another bill that would eliminate, those of you on the air who play inside baseball with RPM, well that the CMS policy to require 16 days of data transmission per 30 days can be a barrier, depending on the use case, depending on why you have a patient in RPM. There is a congressional bill that would eliminate those 16 days, bring it down to 2 days, which, if you're following at home and the pandemic, was the waiver rule during the PHE. Only 2 days of RPM required per 16 to be able to build a device code, the cost you, the provider, paid to get that device. So that's another bill in Congress that we're watching. Both are moving up the chain. And E&C, Justin once taught me that E&C means energy and commerce. You can just call it E&C.
E&C, that's right.
On the smart crowd. So now I call it E&C. So those are just a couple of diabetes management expansion, the definition of diabetes, also a couple of congressional bills, not to get too much inside baseball, but also a couple of bills on CMS local coverage determinations. If you're familiar with the MACs and all those variations in regional pricing, there's a bill that talks about LCDs, local coverage determinations. There is a national coverage determination transparency bill. There is a bill on DME and DMEPOS. I mean, this is deep for Congress to dig into what is normally, CMS territory. And I think all to the good. So a lot of credit to Congress, and more they are coming through and putting bills forward. We'll see what gets all the way through. But if last year was an example, at the end of the year in the spending bill, again, extended telehealth as well as CMS hospital at home. Now, last word on telehealth. I'll stop talking again, let you get some words in. Telehealth expanded through the end of 2024. There are many congressional bills that would make telehealth in the home permanent. We certainly expect that will happen. It's too late to go backwards on that. But again, that's something Congress must do again at the end of the upcoming year. And let's give CMS some credit for doing something too. We opened your show with remote care and all that is moving. CMS did extend virtual supervision. That means you're a doctor and I'm working for you. I'm a clinician and you're Dr. Barnes and I'm clinician Greg, and I'm doing telehealth or I'm doing other remote care services. But they have some level of supervision that must come with them depending on my scope of practice. Okay, that can now be done. CMS extended that. That can be done virtually through audio visual. We do not have to be in the same brick and mortar place. That was a nice get that CMS itself extended through 24. So I'll stop there.
Excellent. Now, and those who may join a little late today, my special guest is longtime friend Greg Fulton, Senior Manager, Market Access and Reimbursement from Philips Healthcare. Now, dude, I know this is great. You're amazing. And obviously, I'm going to have you back. A lot of good room to cover. But I want to also look into the crystal ball a little bit. And before we do the crystal ball, because we only have like one, I'm with the lightning round of crystal ball because we have to close the show in about 3 or 4 minutes. But I do believe we'll get the hospital at home. Obviously, John Halamka is also a great friend of the show. Yes. And he is a huge advocate for hospital at home, one of the leading models in the country, if not, the leading model. So they, I expect, and he does a lot of work, obviously, in Capitol Hill and is well respected. I believe the hospital at home is going to certainly persevere and be renewed for continuous years. It's getting better. I keep an eye on it because of John, and he comes on and talks about it. So I do expect us to, to get some more traction there. So I love the fact that you brought it up, big proponent of it. But here in kind of a lightning round now, where do you see, and obviously I'll have you back, so we don't need to cover everything in the final 2 minutes, but where do you see, us going in 2024? What are the 2 or 3 items that we got to keep an eye on in 2024?
Well, for me personally, and I think this is a little bit universal, in a word, maternal care. Okay. You are also seeing a lot of movement in maternal care, both in what Medicaid is willing to cover and congressionally. Remember the Moms Act and a lot of maternal care came out of the new administration. I think that is poised for a lot of growth. We see the statistics that we don't like on Medicaid moms, I should say, and really in other populations. So remote care, maternal, I think that will be a big growth area.
Excellent.
You've got just universal agreement, improvements have to come there.
So, and we got another minute or so. So, obviously, Philips, future of remote care, and we've talked a little bit about it, but maybe, what does Philips or you guys see us going for 2024 and 2025, or some of your big focuses in that area?
I'm going to go back again to maternal care.
Yep.
I really am, I think that's, and again, part of that, you saw the Medicaid enrollments grow. And then you saw a lot of worry that the Medicaid enrollments would shrink, but that sort of leveled off. But I do think maternal care is one area. We can't have a show these days without talking about our artificial intelligence, machine learning, call it what you will. AMA is putting together guidelines for that. Everybody in the industry is working on that. And I think that's where CMS needs to kind of, again, innovate or move into the future on practice expense and clinical expense and what reimbursement will come for artificial intelligence and really what that's going to look like. And software as a medical device, same idea. You put those two things together and you got to look at reimbursement for it. I'm a reimbursement guy, so I'm always looking for it there. Again, this is going to encompass all payers, all remote care, all populations. And I think, we'll see where we go there, but I think that's another big area.
Yeah. Awesome. Always great, my friend. I appreciate you. So, and I actually agree. I think in the Medicaid side, I was reading the Wall Street Journal this morning, and they do expect, I want to say they're expecting a contraction. I want to say the number was 16 million could possibly drop off of Medicaid by the states once they start, obviously more doing the audits and people who, don't qualify anymore. But they're still going to shift to other care. I think we have the lowest point of uninsured, in the past 25, 30 years or something like that. So, I mean, we're making good grounds there, but we are at time.
Okay.
I appreciate you, my friend, and we'll absolutely do a show. Like I said, I think doing shows quarterly, really highlighting what's happening, because I'll be honest with you, I learned a lot on this show. I knew I was tracking some of this, but not all of this. So you really brought to light, all that's really happening in Capitol Hill. And so I want to bring more of a spotlight to it. So we're absolutely going to do these more often, my good friend.
Happy to. Makes me happy to come see you.
Same here. And thank you so much again. And thank you so much to everyone listening. Truly appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy schedules to listen to us. If you missed any of this show or want to hear more, please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so we can respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, all my shows are posted on iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. Tune in. And also, we'll be pumping some new content out onto justinbarnes.com. So, Greg, as always, my friend, you take care. Great to have you on air. And thanks again to everyone. Stay safe.